Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. To start off today's show, I'm going to review the film His Three Daughters, and in the second half I'll discuss the pros and cons to the streaming model. So, as for His Three Daughters, this is a film I hadn't really heard of before a few days before watching it. It wasn't on my radar at all, and I only really watched it because I saw a few decent reviews and I liked Elizabeth Olsen. She's a great actress. I love her in all the Marvel stuff as Scarlet Witch. She's really good in Gareth Edwards' Godzilla movie. And I also think she's incredible in Wind River. Very underrated movie. If you haven't seen it, please check that out. But anyway, now that I have seen this movie, I feel like I need to do my part to put it on all of your radars, whoever's listening, because this is a truly incredible movie. I did not know what to expect going out. I was blown away. I was floored. And I don't say that often. For a movie to floor me, it really needs to do everything basically terrifically. Like, I just was so blown away by everything this movie does. To me, it's the best drama of the year so far. It's only October. There's still 2 months left, but if this movie isn't on my top 10 favorites at the end of the year, I will be surprised, because this movie is terrific. As for the story, it's nothing too crazy. It's really just about three sisters going to visit their father as he's having the end of his life, and it's just kind of about them taking care of him and kind of learning about each other, seeing things from different perspectives. It's a very simple tale, but told extremely well, and a lot of that's due to the beautiful writing by Azazel Jacobs, who also directs this movie. The way the characters talk just feels so poetic at times. You could really just feel each character. You could feel like these people are real. And this movie is just filled with amazing performances. I can think of at least 3 people who deserve Academy Award nominations from this. Not that they'll all get one, but I think a lot of these people are absolutely terrific here. First one being Elizabeth Olsen, who I mentioned before. She is kind of the more lively, energetic sister. She's trying to bring some humor to the table, not to get in the middle of conflict. But you really do feel for her character. She has more under the surface, and I really liked her performance a lot here. Carrie Coon is also really good as the probably the most stern and strict and serious sister. She wants everything done her way. She wants everything done in a very efficient manner. She's a bit controlling, but you really do feel for her also. And Natasha Lyonne is so good here. I need to see more of her work, because this is the best I've seen her. I mean, she's so good here. I love the way she plays her character. Her sister's probably more of the deadbeat, who's just not really seen as taking anything seriously by anyone. She's not really viewed as part of the family in some ways. And I just thought the way she plays this character is so sympathetic, and you really feel for her in a lot of ways. Just really good on her part. J.O. Sanders is also very good. He gives probably the best monologue I've heard so far this year, in a really beautiful 5 to 10 minute sequence that just had me in tears. Yovan Adepo also has a few very good scenes. Only a couple scenes really, but the ones he does have are great. And this movie just, it's very interesting because there's really no plot. It's not like a movie that has a lot going on. Even though the sisters are trying to take care of their dad, it's not a movie where a lot happens. I could summarize what happens in this movie in about 2 sentences, and it wouldn't sound that exciting, but everything in it is so profound and beautiful to watch. You really could mistake this for a stage play, though. I mean, there's very limited action, only 2 or 3 locations, and a handful of characters. It's not a lot happening on paper, but a lot happens regarding the people in the story, and that's what makes it so good. And what this movie does so excellently is the characters. They all feel layered and have a lot of personality. You feel like each of these people are so different and distinct from each other, but they also feel real. And that's something I love when a movie does. If you can watch a movie and feel like these fictional characters are real, existing people, and you're seeing them grow in what feels like real time, and it feels like these characters exist outside of the movie, it's terrific. I love that so much. It feels like these people really had lives before and after the movie begins and ends. And, sometimes you just feel like you're watching a movie. You're watching a movie. This movie, to me, just felt like I was watching, like being a fly on the wall, watching these people really learn something about each other. And I just really love that. Thematically, this movie is just so profound and wise. I just love what it has to say, and I can't spoil a lot of it because I think part of the experience of this movie is going in kind of blind and finding things out along with the characters that maybe you wouldn't have known otherwise. I think, like, me telling you what this movie's really about is actually going to ruin your experience watching it. So please go see it. Don't look up too much about it. You'll thank me later. But it's just, I love what this movie has to say. And the third act is so beautiful and emotional. I mean, the whole movie is really good, but the third act especially just hit me like a truck. I mean, it's really like, it's so beautiful. There's one monologue, again, that really got to me in this. And it really just, like, it made me think a lot. And I think it's a very, very good scene. And this is an important movie that will likely hit a lot harder for people who have siblings. You can still watch this movie if you don't have a sibling, and, you'll still take away something from it. But I think those with siblings especially will take on a new meaning to this, and maybe take away a new meaning to what their own relationship with their siblings is like. And I think that's what's so important about this movie. I mean, I have a good relationship with my sister, but this movie just, like, especially if you don't have a good relationship with your siblings, or maybe you don't tell them how much you love or appreciate them enough, definitely give this movie a watch. You will probably want to just call them up afterwards and say how much you love them. So there's that going for it too. My only nitpick of this movie is it's a little too much talking. It's a lot of talking, and again, it feels like a stage play in that regard. There's really not that much to really look at visually here. There is some beautiful cinematography. Don't get me wrong, it's a great looking movie, but it's just like, there's a lot of talking. This script is really relying on dialogue to get the points across. And there were a few times I was, like, hoping for a little more silence to just kind of let things sink in for the characters. You didn't get quite as much of that as I would have liked, but I think to me that's a bit more of a nitpick than a real problem that prevented me from, like, loving this movie. But, yeah, this movie's on Netflix. If you have it, you really have no excuse not to watch this movie. It's a near perfect film. I don't have, like, too much to say about it, just, like, on here, but just thinking about it a lot, I've really taken away a lot from this movie. I think it's a really important movie for a lot of people to watch. I really can't recommend it enough. I'd give it an A. I'm so glad I watched this movie. It's absolutely terrific. Highly, highly recommend it. You won't regret it. Now, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of movies made for streaming. And that's specifically related to movies that get made for streaming versus movies in theaters. This isn't about the advantages to watching at home versus theaters. That's a topic for another day. Right now, we're specifically talking about movies made for streaming versus movies in theaters. So first I'm going to get into my pros, and then I'll get into my cons. But starting off with what's good about it, right? What's good about streaming is content readily available at all times, any time of day. There's no need to wait for specific showtime in theaters. And I think that goes for a movie like this, like His Three Daughters. I didn't have to wait to go watch it in theaters. I heard it was good, and I just decided, all right, I'm putting on Netflix. I'm going to watch it right now. And that's really great for people who don't want to have to go out and drive to a theater and wait for trailers and go wait for popcorn. You just put it on your TV whenever you're ready. And that's a really great thing to have. I think also good word of mouth can do so many wonders on streaming, more than it even would in theaters, because there's no need to go out and see something when you can easily access it on TV. Good word of mouth, you talk about a good movie that's in theaters, like, you still have to make an effort to go out. You're like, maybe I'll watch it when it's on TV, but you can watch it right now when it's on TV, on streaming. So you can have things like Stranger Things and Squid Game and Mandalorian. They're all shows that just blew up from word of mouth, and they become so popular instantly. So you just had a lot of movies like that really just came out of nowhere. And another thing is that there's a lot of new movies constantly hitting platforms like Netflix, Max, Hulu, Peacock, etc. There's just so many movies every single week that we don't even hear about a lot of them. But they're there, and there's just so much to watch that you could literally, spend days on end, just, kind of scrolling through trying to figure out what to watch. So there's just so much new content, and I love that about streaming. I think it's so good that we just have so much to watch. And it's also just more accessible to the masses immediately. There's, in theaters, there's a whole theatrical run that happens where it goes to theaters, and then you have to go, gets the premium video on demand where you have to pay to watch it, and then you can go get it on streaming. But there's no need to wait after several weeks or months for a theatrical run to avoid spoilers. For a big movie or show, you could just watch it immediately right on TV. There's no need to worry, like, oh, I'm going to get, like, spoiled if I don't get to this movie this weekend, in the theaters. But it's like, if you can't go to theaters for some reason, I know there's some people who don't like going to the movie theaters for several reasons, but, it's just so nice to have a movie readily available. And my last point in the pros is that there's just a smaller, more niche group of movies that get made because there's no need to worry about spending on marketing and the movie underperforming. There's still a market for these kinds of movies. Like, they could just spend more on making the movie rather than having to worry about how much they're going to lose. And that's even something I heard about, like, Beetlejuice recently. I don't know if any of you have heard this, but basically what I heard was it was originally made for streaming. It was, like, designed to go to streaming before it was filmed. And the budget was pretty huge, but Tim Burton really wanted it to go to theaters. And basically Warner Brothers told him, you can put it in theaters, but we're cutting your budget by like $70 million or something like that. So, Tim Burton really wanted to go to theaters, so he made the budget less. But basically, there's like a lot of worry about having to spend for marketing and the movie underperforming. There's not as much worry on streaming, and you can just kind of go all out on that. So, streaming is great for not having to deal with those things. Now, as for the cons, the first one that comes to mind is that we never hear about 3/4 of the movies that come out. Like I was talking earlier, I was saying that there's so many movies every week on these streaming services, and you could spend days on end looking at them. But I think the problem with that is that we never hear about so many of them. There's so many movies that come out each week, and so many filmmakers who want their movies seen, but we aren't watching most of those. We're watching the ones that blow up and have, are on the top 10 most watched, and the ones that everyone's talking about. I think I saw there's over 400 Netflix original movies and TV shows in 2024. So, just to say, that's so many, just on Netflix. But nobody's watching them because there's little to no marketing. That's a whole other issue for another day, too. But, Netflix and Disney and all these other studios, the streaming services, they don't really market these movies. They just kind of put them out, dump them on the service, and then they're hoping for word of mouth to kind of carry that marketing to people. But here's the other issue. Strong word of mouth is very rare for streaming. When it happens, it's even better than theaters. But the fact is it doesn't happen very often because very few titles really appeal to the masses and take off by storm. You don't have a Stranger Things every day, there are so many shows on Netflix every year, but only a couple of them become a Squid Game or Stranger Things that just really take the world by storm and blow up like that. So it's very rare. And another issue is that content being accessible anytime means less people are motivated to watch immediately. In theaters, there's a bit of a motivation to go to theaters because you know that if you don't see this movie in the next couple weeks, you may not be able to get it again in theaters. You may have to wait, weeks after that to go watch it on streaming. So, there's a limited time factor in theaters that's really important and gets you to watch things quicker. On streaming, though, to me at least, I find that a movie will get put on streaming. If I don't watch it opening weekend when I first hear about it and think about it, I'm probably not going to watch it for months. And that's very sad because there's actually a lot of stuff I want to watch on streaming. There's still stuff, I really do want to still watch on streaming. One example of this is the movie The Atom Project. It was a sci-fi movie with Ryan Reynolds. It came out in 2022. I wanted to watch it when it first came out. And then I just kind of forgot about it. I lost, kind of interest in seeing it. Not because the movie, I heard it was bad or anything, just because there was so much other stuff out that I wanted to see, and I just kind of lost track of time. And literally, I just watched it this last weekend. So it took me almost 2 full years to watch this movie that I actually wanted to see initially, but I just kind of lost interest. And that's partly because no one was talking about it. It's partly because I could just watch it immediately, so there's no need to really get to it fast enough. Like movies in theaters, I want to see them opening weekend because I know that if I don't see it now, I may not see it for a while. But streaming, I can just pop it on anytime I want, so there's no motivation factor. And the last point I'll make here is that streamers can take content off at any time. You can't watch it anymore. So this happens a lot. Like shows and movies just get taken off of Disney Plus and Netflix and Amazon, and that's unrelated to the things of like licensing things where like it'll move from Netflix to Max or something. This is more about you can just write stuff off. Like, things going to theaters and streaming, like you can then buy those things later. You can purchase them online. Streamers, though, like a Netflix original, Netflix can just choose at any time they want to just write it off and just throw it away, and you won't be able to see it for a while. So, and they can just do that anytime out of nowhere. So that kind of takes away a lot from me from streaming. I think that's just a problem that in general happens with streaming. There's a lot of there's a lot of benefits to things going on streaming. Again, like there's so many movies that get made and get put on streaming that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But it's just a lot of problems also that come with it that I think people should be aware of. And really the reason I'm talking about all this is because His Three Daughters is a movie that I didn't know about. It was not marketed at all. I really just saw it because I heard a few people talk about it, and it went to, just open, so it was on the front page of Netflix. But maybe I wouldn't have seen this movie otherwise. And if I didn't, I would regret that so much because I love this movie. So I guess my point here is just kind of check out more movies on streaming because these movies, some of them can be so good, but you never know what you're going to get. It's like just a surprise. Also, go check out Rebel Ridge. That's a great movie. I just saw it on Netflix a few weeks ago. And Hitman, another movie I saw a few weeks ago on Netflix. These are all great movies. So please go watch them. They're really good. But that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd and MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.